Hey guys, welcome back to another UWU Weekly Wecap, the video series where I recap and get you up to speed with my current blind solo prog of UWU. It's my first ultimate, and I am basically solo cooking the whole fight. What that means is that I'm taking a group of raiders, some experienced UWU killers, some not, trying to get roughly an even split on that. And we're going through and trying to kill UWU without any guides, no help, nothing. Chat's not allowed to help. None of my raiders are allowed to help. I have to figure out the mechanics and come up with the strategy solely on my own. Here and there, I'll take little hints, but I'm talking maybe we might go a whole day without me getting a hint, you know? So we'll get like a lot of prog, and it's only when I'm really, really extremely stuck that I'll get little hints here and there. But they're like nicely constructed hints, so it doesn't give too much away, and I still have to think. So that's what we've been doing. We're a few weeks into our prog now. We're currently almost 400 pulls in, and we are progressing Ultima Annihilation. That's the prog point that we're at. So I've got a couple of clips here to show you how we have advanced since the last video that I uploaded for you, and we have upped our raiding days. Instead of doing 1 a week, we're doing like 2, 3 a week now, because I really want this dead before Dawn Trail. I really don't want to lose tempo as Dawn Trail releases. So most recently, the prog point that we were at is we'd seen Doom. I'd figured out about awakening all of the bosses. I figured out how to wake them all, but we weren't able to awaken Titan yet. I knew how to awaken him, but we hadn't managed to do it, and then I didn't know what the subsequent effect was going to be, and I didn't know what we were going to have to do in order to get past Doom with all the bosses awakened. I didn't know if that was going to be enough, or we were going to have to do more. So we also were having problems with Ifrit Dashes. I knew how it worked, like I knew what was going on screen, but I didn't know how to like consistently deal with it. Well, then I managed to come up with a pretty unique strat, or supposedly like a new strat, a new way of dealing with this. Now, whether it's new or not, I don't know. I'm sure in the comment section you'll let me know. No, 5 years ago, me and my friend Billy, we did that, and you're not the first one. Awesome, but apparently this is a strat that no one had seen before, including everyone in my chat, so like that was pretty cool. So maybe I've come up with something new for an old fight. But basically, with the Ifrit Dashes, these are based on the nails that spawn earlier on the phase of Ifrit. Now, what I noticed about the charges, I spent a lot of time wiping here and trying to figure it out. And something to note here is that we were consistently able to skip the Ifrit Dashes, but I was like, no, I want to make sure that we would hold DPS so that we specifically saw the dashes, because I didn't just want to skip this mechanic. I wanted to figure it out first, and then I was okay with us not holding DPS. So once I'd figured it out, we stopped holding DPS, and that's where we're at. But I wanted to figure it out and be able to execute on it before we did that. So what I noticed about the nail spawns, well, the charges, they were obviously linked to the nails. So wherever the nails were, whichever nail you killed first was the one that caused the order of the charges. So I figured that out. That took some time. But then what I realized, for the consistency of the charges, we were killing them in like this weird clockwise order, and I was trying to figure out whether to kill like a far one, then a close one, and like what to do, whether we go clockwise, anti-clockwise, whatnot. And then I realized, hold on a minute, the nails always spawn in a pattern. 2 cardinal charges, 2 intercardinal charges. And I was like, well, if we can bait out both of one direction first, then like if we bait both cardinal charges, then we know that we're safe intercardinal. Huh, okay. And then we can bait, we can dodge from like cardinal to intercardinal and then dodge back again, and then we're good. And we don't have to run all the way around the map. We can just take 5 steps to the left, 5 steps to the right. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And so that's what we did. So we stand on 3 marker, we killed 2 intercardinal nails first, and then what I realized, like, to perfect the strat is you take it a step further. You dodge into the path of the first Ifrit charge. So sometimes you have an Ifrit that charges to the left here, sometimes an Ifrit that charges to the right. You just dodge into that path once it's gone, and then when and then I think you can chill there. So that's what we do. We get double into cardinal, then we get double cardinal, and then we get this follow-up blast. So what we could have done from 3 is move over to the right. Yeah, and then we move back to 3. So we'd stand cardinal, move into cardinal, move back cardinal. And that would just sort everything. It would deal with the blue charge and everything. So it's awesome. You don't have to move too much. Super easy to follow. That was our strat. And what I had to do was then go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, how does the blue charge work? And then I remembered, or like, how does this after explosion work? And I remembered it was tied to the blue Ifrit. That was the obvious sign. Depending on whenever the blue Ifrit would charge, then, what do you know, the explosion would happen not too long after. And I think it was something like, so if the blue charge was cardinal, the explosion would happen into cardinal. So you would line up with whatever the direction was of the blue charge. So that's what I figured out, and it was quite cool, like, piecing it all together. It took a very, very, very long time, but we got there. I think I may have had some kind of hint at some point from the team along the way, but it wasn't anything like this whole strat I'd managed to figure out myself. I think we just kind of realized... yeah, I can't quite remember if I had any assistance with, like, figuring out the charges, but figuring out the solution was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, fully all me, which was really, really cool. So that was how we dealt with the Ifrit Dashes, and from then on, we've been dodging them. The next thing was, I think I actually have prepared for you, I think I have Titan. So, this is actually our current prog point, and this is actually like a good pull. So we have Titan. I realized with Titan that the way to awaken him was with the jails. So that's what we tried to do. Now, figuring out a consistent system for this was actually really difficult and took a lot of time. But I got there with, what if we assigned a macro above everybody's head? And I think I even spoke about this in the last video. I could be mistaken, but we assigned a number to everyone's, like, macro, and then all you'd have to do is, when you get knocked back, is activate your macro if you had a jail, and then run to position, dodge the landslide. Well, since then, I've realized a couple things. A, when the knockback is happening, depending on where, like, you can see what I do, I turn my camera around, wait and see where the double boulder spawns, and then we just adjust from what you guys call the nipple, I think, but basically the arrow that points out of the boss, their hit marker. You either move to the left a little bit or to the right a little bit. It still can be a little bit delicate to execute perfectly, but you can do it like 9 times out of 10 pretty consistently. So that's what I do, adjust slightly, get knocked back, pop my sprint, pop my macro if I get it. Luckily on this pull, lovely, I do get it. What we also figured out is that the landslide was baitable. So it does actually have the ability to be baited. So what we do now, whichever direction the double rocks are on, so if the double rocks are on the right, then we're gonna bait the landslide to the left. Like, we all run left. So that's what we would do. And then if it was the other side, we do the opposite. So we either bait to the left or the right, just whichever direction we get knocked into, we just follow it around that side. And that's what we would do. So that's the point that we're at. Another neat thing that I noticed with the jails, is like, okay, it took a little bit of time. We actually spent like 20 minutes, me trying to figure out the markers of how to improve our success. But we had like 20 minutes going through markers on the map and getting that perfect, where we can get the right sort of pixel perfect, like, positioning. If we drop a jail on marker 4, anywhere in the middle, and then marker 2, they'd all line up. So that took some time. It was funny. I was trying to, like, mess around putting markers on the map. My team were like, no, Sai, you have to put the markers perfect. Like, put, you know, A north and whatnot. Like, get them all perfectly lined up. It was hell. I couldn't do it. I tried to get, like, a tape measure. I'll probably include the clip in the video for you. Hilarious. But another little tip that I worked on was, if you actually jump, and I don't do it in this clip, but if you actually jump into the landslide, like, as it's fading, because your jail will just, like, it'll just stun you, right? But if you jump in the air, you get stunned, but you kind of carry on that jump movement. So it will allow you to travel that extra little bit whilst you're traveling in the air. And it's quite nice. Gives you that extra, like, little distance. So we get these jails here. Nice and cute. Awaken Titan took a lot of pulls. A lot of pulls. So this is still... Honestly, this is still the prog point. Like, this... Today... We spent a whole day raiding, 5-6 hours. We saw Ultima like 4 times. The other day we were a lot more consistent with it, but today was just one of those where you'd wipe on jail all day. Just one of those. But it took a long time for me to get consistent with living once we'd awoken Titan. And what I realized was, like, just don't greed. All you have to do is not greed and you pass this. It's not hard. It's not a damage check. Like, just don't greed. So it was very simple to, like, once I actually sat back and analyzed it, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I'm just greeding too much. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty fun. So we figured that out with Titan. Now, the fun bit. The very fun bit. Once we'd awoken Titan for the very first time, I started making, like, I'd had notes. And my plan was, okay, I know that we get these little awakening circles that drop off the awakened bosses, and then people can soak them, but they can only soak 1 per person. And I was like, we're going to get 3. It's like, how on earth are we going to do this? Like, how is this going to apply to Doom? Because I knew it had something to do with Doom. Like, as soon as we saw Doom the first time, I was like, right, there's something to piece this all together. It's like, what are we going to need to do? And I settled on the most likely thing, being that we just need to awaken all the bosses, and that's it. Soak all the Aether, and that's it. That didn't work. Doom still happened. And I was like, right, maybe we need to expend our charged Aether. So we need to soak the Aether and then get rid of it. And every time you use, like, anyone that soaks the Aether, if they use an LB3, then it recharges the LB3. And noticing the visual on that was, again, another funny moment where I was like, I paused and was like, why is my screen flashbanging me? And I was like, kind of get some sort of, like, hinting here and there. So, like, you know, I'm going to hold my hand up. Like, I am getting some little hints here and there. A little kind of, like, you know, like, maybe this, like, people will say, like, something like, maybe there's something you haven't fully cooked yet in this phase. Like, those are the kind of hints I get, where it's not exactly pointing me in the right direction, but it's just saying, like, maybe there's more to look out for. And then it's like, right, I go back to the drawing board and try and focus on these, like, minute little details. And I noticed the glow. So, and then I saw the LB3, and I was like, oh, okay, oh, it makes sense, we get recharge LB3. It's like, what? I was like, how are we going to expend all these LBs? And I was like, it didn't really make sense to me, because I was like, well, they're not going to design the fights that we're already skipping Ifrit, so you don't need to LB3 on Ifrit, because we're already skipping it with ease before the dashes. LB3ing on Titan, like, that would be kind of weird to just be like, randomly Titan is the one that you got to LB3 a bunch. And I was like, I know for a fact we're gonna have to save 1 LB3 to deal with all the ads that are gonna come up. So, like, it's definitely not using all our LB3s on Titan. We need a caster LB3 here. So I was like, right, okay, we need a caster LB3 here. And then what happens next? Then we get Doom. And once those 2 first plans didn't work, I was like, right, okay, the next thing is maybe we have to use an LB for Doom. Like, we used the LB for the caster to kill all that. How would we survive Doom? Well, I wrote down notes of what Doom does, what Doom has done in all the other areas of the game. And there's like 3 different types. There's, you need to get full healed. There's, you need to move into a certain position, right? In that one dungeon, Temple of Khan. You need to move onto the platform, right? That dispels Doom. Or there's getting dispelled. And I was like, right, it's not a dispel. There's nowhere to move on to. It's got to be a heal. It's got to be some kind of heal. And I was like, what if we pre-cast LB3 from healers? And maybe that lines up in that 3... I was like, how long is the LB3 cast for healers? Maybe there's something in that where, like, when we get unfrozen, we LB3, and it, like, reses us on our death or something. Like, technically we die, but we'll live. It's like, maybe there's something in that, because it's not going to be a tank LB3. It's not going to be anything else. Let's try a healer LB3. Lo and behold, it works. And then I was like, right, okay, what could the next one be? And the next one was like, maybe this is a... Like, I'm with DPS and I'm like, okay, we're not going to kill him. There's no way we kill him in this time. So then you figure out, oh, it's a DPS LB3, specifically melee. Like, right, okay, we're doing all these different LBs. Like, this is starting to make a lot of sense now. And then, just instinctively, it's like tank LB3. Gotta be tank LB3 for this one. There's no damage here. We've already used the healer one. It's gotta be tank. So, this was quite quick. Once I realized the healer LB3 thing, like, once I realized the other stuff didn't work, I was like, right, well, we've gotta use him here. It's really cool all coming together. Like, it felt awesome putting it together. And, like, I honestly could probably at this point just watch a guide for the rest of the fight and be pretty happy and be pretty satisfied and go, you know what? That was awesome. I cooked all the awakenings. I cooked all the mechanics on every boss. I figured out what to do with the Aether. I figured out how to deal with Doom. Like, I am incredibly happy and proud. And even in this video, I'm saying, like, well, I got a hint here and I got a hint there. But I'll be honest, like, I'm gonna feel proud and say I did the vast majority of all of this. So I'm, like, really proud of that. Obviously, my raiders being absolute studs and helping us get through this, like, couldn't do it without you. So you guys are absolute gamers. And yeah, it's been incredibly fun. But doing that, I was so elated. Like, I really felt like I've achieved something now with this fight. From here on out, it's just a victory lap, huh? So this was really cool. We instantly wiped though when we first got to Ultima. We instantly wiped because we get the first mechanic. So we get Tank Purge. That was just like, right, what's it gonna be? Tank Purge. Oh, okay, it's just gonna be like a tank thing. Don't need to stress too much about it. And it was well, it was just like group damage, right? It wasn't like a tank thing, but it was just group damage. Like, whatever. Nothing happened. Okay, cool. We continue. Then we get homing lasers. Homing lasers was rough. It took me a couple pulls to figure it out. It took me like 2 pulls because I spent a lot of time VOD watching because I was like, I'm not going to let us get this far into the fight and then not have a plan. So it was like, right, it seems to be going on... At first I thought it was going on the furthest player. Then I noticed the debuff. Once I noticed the debuff, it kind of made sense. So there's a debuff that gets applied to the player that's second on threat. And at first it went on a DPS player. And then I tried to figure out, like, I can't remember exactly how we did it, but there was some discussion. We had some discussion about it, and I figured out very quickly. I was like, it's threat-based. Because I was looking at DPS positions. I was, like, looking at how it was going on people, and I was like, it's not going on always a healer or always a DPS or always a tank. Like, it seemed to kind of have some fluctuation. But again, this only took me a couple pulls, like 2 or 3 maybe. And I was like, maybe it's threat-based. At first I thought it was health-based because it went on somebody who was super low health. And I was like, maybe it's like the lowest health. I think it was Anna at the time who had the lowest health amount. It's like, maybe it's going on the lowest health player. Maybe we've got to do something like in Alexander, where you have to drop your health really low as a tank on A8. It's like, maybe like one tank has to stay high, one tank has to go low, and they have to be the lowest in health. And then I was like figuring out how they do that. So that didn't fully make sense. And then I was like, threat-based. Because I think Snaku was like, it's not that. There's something else like to do with player frames. It is. I was like, it's gonna be threat. So realized that was threat-based, and then I was like, tank, just move that out with that. Just like move out with that. And then that still was causing deaths for tanks. So it's like, right, that's still not good enough. And then I had to analyze like how much damage is it doing? Is it doing 99999? Is it doing 100,000 or like 70,000 or something, like something that with MIT or like a group soak we could handle. So realized that it was a group soak that we could just like, instead of invulning it, we could group soak it. I think that's what we're currently still doing. I think we're having the tanks come and stand with it. So we group up for it and just take the hit. Then it's time for ultimate predation, which is kind of like our current prog point. I figured out the solution to it. This was really fun to figure out, but also like soul destroying at the same time because they're all easy mechanics, but figuring out, I was like, I saw it and I was like, man, this is horrible because there's going to be a perfect position to stand in, and figuring out where that's going to be is going to take me so much time. It's going to take forever. But I broke it all down piece by piece. I broke down what happens first, what are the biggest dangers, what do we need to avoid, and how do we avoid it? That's what I did. Ultima dissipates a charge around it in like a 15-yard radius or whatever. Titan does landslides and then follows it up with like, it does awaken landslides, right? Ifrit just does a charge and then it does the empowered charge, so there's going to be the follow-up explosion. And then you have Garuda, who's going to be doing a mechanic, which Garuda was actually the hardest one to figure out because we naturally skip Garuda's mechanic every single time. I'd only ever seen it once. We skip Garuda's mechanic every single time, which is basically move out because of the circle. When the circle disappears, move in. So she basically creates like an Eye of the Storm safe spot. So at first you move out and then you move in. And I was like, well, we can't move into Garuda. This took a lot of pulls. This was very soul destroying, getting this far, and then like, and you know, especially with the jails, you might have 20 pulls go by, 30 pulls go by before you see this phase again. No wonder we're up to almost 400 pulls now. But I realized with Garuda, we went back to phase 1 and we tested it, and I was like, oh, you can move, like you can move out, and you can just dodge both effects by outranging. You don't have to move out then move in. You can just stay out. Kind of like E8, right? Which is what I was reminded of at one point. So we dodged Garuda from that. So I'm like, right, we need to, like, I started to piece it all together. I was like, right, we can't go near Ultima. Sorted. We can't be in the Ifrit charge. Sorted. We can't go too close to Garuda, which means we need to go to, like, the furthest angle. Garuda always spawned in the middle of the room, on one of these sort of like intercardinal positions of the markers, right? Like in between the marker positions, like diagonal or whatever you want to say. It's like, right, she's gonna sort of like rotate and spawn randomly. There didn't seem to be any like rhyme or reason to where they would spawn. It seemed random. Like, okay, let's go to this far edge, dodge Ultima, dodge the landslides when they're gonna come through. And then I know that there's gonna be the follow-up slam. So this position here was just like very quickly was a position that just made sense that we could dodge in. We're not near Titan, not near Ultima, not near Garuda, not in the way of Ifrit. This, like, if you look at the whole of the map, we can't go over here. We can't go over there or over there. There's maybe a spot over there in the Ifrit charge, like we could maybe go to the opposite side of the map there, but then again, you're too close to Garuda. So this became apparent as being like the only position that was safe. So when I pieced it all together, it was like, right, this cuts down the area of the map that I really need to consider by quite a large margin. And then it became about real minute adjustments and like, right, we need to take like 5 steps left, then a couple steps back. And it took a while. I ended up getting a little bit of a hint. And the hint was, so after we'd wiped to this, maybe like 10 pulls, we've seen predation, maybe. We're wiping and wiping, and sometimes 1 or 2 people live, and it's never been clean. I'm like, right, okay. There's got to be a perfect spot that every single time is just going to be safe, no matter what. I got a hint. I reached the point where I was like, you know what? I'm happy now. We're almost 400 pulls in. I'm happy now. I know how the whole mechanic works. I'm very, very, very close to solving it. I'm happy to get a hint. The hint is there are lines on the floor. I'm like, right, okay, well that doesn't really help. I start to then look at the arena. I'm like, yeah, there's like sort of a, you know, like this kind of overlapping like line formation on the in the middle of the room, and then there's like swirly lines on the left. I was like, don't know. And then there's these runes. There's these runes on like this on this side here. There's one on this side and one on the opposite side of the map. There's like these runes here. And I was like, right, okay, well, I was looking inside the arena, and there was kind of like a safe spot inside the arena where there's like a little chunk of ground that appears to kind of be like roughly safe. Yeah, it's like right there, right where the group is standing. It's like right after the first charge. It's like right here, or the first landslide. It's like right over here. But it wasn't very clear. And it still looked like kind of hard to figure out. And I almost gave up on it. And then I was like, no, you know what? Ultimates are supposed to be challenging. I was like, there's no way this is right, because it's too precise. It's too exact. And I was like, no, this is an ultimate. That's exactly what it's gonna be. So then I started actually looking outside the arena, and I was like, okay, well, I can use this as a reference point. It's like, wait a second, there's all this glowing shit outside the arena. What could that be? And then I went, I realized where this safe spot was, and then kind of worked outward. And I went, okay, well, this is roughly where I think is safe. How does that work out with, like, anything that I can use as a reference point? And I was just desperately trying to use a reference point. And I counted these runes, and I went 1, 2, 3. And I went 3 runes. Okay, that lines up. Now, funnily enough, it's actually 4 runes that lines up. But I was like, oh, I think that lines up on 3 runes. And that's where my group is. And it works. And they live. And I was like, right. 3 runes. That's got to be it. So I started using that. Didn't get full confirmation whether or not it was correct until we did it again. And then I had a conversation. I was like, all right, guys, hands up. Tell me, have I done it? Have we solved it? People said something about doing like a cheese, and I was like, nah, I don't want to know about the cheese. I was like, I don't want to cheese this. I want to do it properly. I was like, I don't want to be told what the strat is if it's the cheese strat. I only want to be told the proper strat. And then everyone started laughing, and they were like, Psy, that is the cheese strat. So it was really funny. I was like, the only reason I want to know the cheese strat is if I cooked the cheese strat. And then that's when everyone laughed. And I was like, okay, yeah, I cooked it. And they told me. But it turns out it's actually 4 runes, not 3. But that's how you use it as a reference point to identify the safe spot. That's where we're at. That is our current point. That's all of the cooking that I was doing. That's how I managed to piece it all together and everything that went through my mind. And then now we're at this point. Eruptions, I'm going to send out. Super easy to deal with. Then we're gonna have I believe, yeah, then we all have to move middle. Then we have to watch out because these berries, like these boulders, are gonna drop, so you have to move out of the middle. So what I want to do, and then we're gonna get landslide, and not only is Titan gonna do landslide, but the boss is gonna do landslide. So what I want to do is drag the boss to the opposite side of Titan and face outside of the arena. That way we actually don't have to deal with his landslide, because it's just out of the arena, which means we only have to deal with Ifrits. And then we can just see where the first one is, and then just dodge into it on the opposite side of the arena, and we should be, like, safe. We should be good to go. So that's my current, like, plan of how we're going to optimize this with everyone alive. We stay out of the middle. So then we go from there. There's, like, Garou. I think this is when he then looks to do the tether. Yeah, ultimate annihilation. So this is where we're at now. This is our proper prog point. There's gonna be a Garuda tether, which we're gonna. What I really like right now, I don't know if this is correct or wrong, but what I'm doing is I'm assigning both of our ranged are gonna pick up the wind debuff in phase 1. They're gonna carry it through here, and then that way we have a primary target and a backup. They're gonna deal with the tether. One of them. We're going to deal with these wakes. Like, I should be stacked up with the group. I should have been on the edge, stacked up with the group based on my previous assessment. But again, this is like stuff that I'm trying to figure out now, so we haven't executed it yet. We're also going to get this prey. That's a group stack, Accursed Flame. Everyone needs to stack for that. I already know that because it's the same as Ifrit. Then there's like an orb that you hit and it explodes and it gives us a shield. I don't know exactly what we want to do with that. I'm assuming that's going to be an opportunity for us to get rid of any outstanding wind debuffs, or like it's got to be used for something. I don't know yet, so I'm gonna wait and see. Still cooking on that. That's literally like that's where we're at. That's our prog point. That's our cook. Done. But it's been really fun so far. It's been really fun so far. The only negative feedback I have about this fight so far is I don't like jails. I think jails are way too precise to execute. I think that you could do with a couple solutions. If I really wanted to nitpick and like off solutions is when you get pushed back for the jail, you should already know who's got jail. So as you're getting pushed back, you get hit with a sort of debuff, and then you can already get your macro going before you started moving. That way you can sort of identify numbers and then get in position. An alternative to that is just doing the exact same mechanic as it currently is, but giving you about 1 extra second, maybe 2 extra seconds to execute the mechanic. 2 is a little bit too generous. I think 1 extra second would be enough to just get in like nice position every time and not sort of be panicky and rushed. That's my only little bit of like, I'd enjoy the fight a lot more if it was for that. But yeah, come check me out on YouTube, come check me out on Twitch. I live stream on Twitch and YouTube every day, so I'm live streaming on this YouTube channel and on twitch.tv/Psybearslat_TV. If you want to see me prog and UWU live, I'm pretty much doing it every day now until Dawn Trail releases, because we got to get this killed. So come check us out for the last little bit of this fight, fingers crossed, and see if I can end up an ultimate legend. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Hope you've enjoyed this weekly recap. See you in the next one.